There we go. All right, it's in the comment sections. Our link to, you got to have at least like one 80s video linked there. So we'll talk about birthday girl Jennifer Warnes in just a bit. But welcome. It's another beautiful morning up north, and I am going to have to change that photo with the snow pretty much gone up here on Lake Wissota. Nice to have you along. State Representative Jodi Emerson joining me in just a sec. For those of you new to the live stream, it's not a full-blown radio show, not quite a podcast, just a good place to have a live interview with people for stories I'm working on for Up North News. And Jodi Emerson is here in just a minute. Tomorrow, Dr. Kristen Lyerly. Then no shows Thursday or Friday or the early part of next week while I take a little midwinter break. Well, late winter break, I guess it would be. When I timed it out, I initially thought the legislative session was going to go for, another couple of weeks here, and it's not. And that's great for my schedule. Less so for people that actually want to get some work done. Jodi Emerson being one of them, and she joins us now from Madison. Representative Emerson, good morning. How are you?
Good morning, Pat. How are you today?
I'm good, thank you. Nice to see you. You're down in Madison for meetings and things,
Yes.
so you got to keep things going. Even though the calendar says that the session theoretically could go till as late as March 19th, but the assembly, for all intents and purposes, is out, and you ended with a lot of drama: Medicaid postpartum expansion, breast cancer screenings, Voss retiring. I'd lump it all in the category of unnecessary drama, but it was drama just the same. How what was your impression of the final 48 hours of chaos?
Well, so we had 1 week where we had 4 session days, and to get into the nerdy things that you and I like, the parliamentarian things.
Mm-hmm.
On Thursday it was the direct refer calendar, so they're announcing it, and they'll be like, Thursday 11:01 having arrived, except for it went into Friday, so it was like Friday at 5 p.m. and the speaker is saying, the hour of 11:02 on Thursday having arrived. And when you've got 4 session days, your brain's a little wonky anyways.
Right. And then they go put you in a time machine.
Exactly.
Sure.
But it was a great, our final week, which we think is going to be the final week. We could still come back in March if the Senate does something to amend some of the stuff that we're sending over or something like that. So we're not totally adjourned yet for the year, but for the most part, we're kind of on the slower season now. But we got some really big wins that last week. We passed Gill's Law, which mandates that insurance needs to cover breast cancer screenings for those who have dense breasts, which is about 40% of women, really. And we've got the postpartum Medicaid expansion got passed. Like you said, Speaker Voss announced his retirement, which is a win for all of Wisconsin, I think. And we got a SNAP food stamp kind of agreement in place that we negotiated to make sure that we can get enough people in positions to keep our error rate low, which was something off of the big bungling bill that we needed to do in order to not lose money on that. And then the other thing that we got out late Friday was the PFAS as well, that money that has been stuck in joint finance for 2 years. We've got an agreement in place, and we passed the bill to help get that out to private well owners and cities alike in order to help with PFAS remediation.
Let me come back to the Gales Law one, just for folks who may not be familiar, going, well, what does, breast density have to do with this? The Affordable Care Act does mandate coverage of a breast cancer screening, but, for many women, like you said, like 40% require some kind of a follow-up, not covered in the Affordable Care Act. Am I understanding that correctly?
Exactly. And a lot of people, we're seeing younger and younger people getting breast cancer. We're doing screenings younger and younger. And that tissue is usually more dense the younger you are. And so people were having to make the choice of, do I do this additional screening that my doctor is recommending for me, but my insurance company isn't paying for? Do I pay for that out of pocket, or do I roll the dice and just assume that the mammogram is going to be enough? So for those of us who have breast cancer history in our family, it's something that you don't want to ever have to put yourself in a position of, can I afford to test for something or not? If your doctor recommends it, an insurance company shouldn't stand in the way. And
No.
we had Gail's family in the balcony when we passed the law. Unfortunately, Gail is no longer with us because she did not get the screening that she needed to have it caught soon enough. And that was our whole power behind this, is knowing that if we could save another Gail, let's do it.
You've also introduced a bill calling for a right to fertility treatments that I don't think we've had a chance to discuss. And people would say, well, what do you mean? Who would block a right to fertility treatments? Well, you'd be surprised, I think.
Well, who would block the right to, contraception too? But some people do, and I think everybody's entitled to their own beliefs. What I have a problem with is when somebody's beliefs infringe on what I need done with my body. And so, whether it is IVF or fertility maintenance, somebody's maybe going in because they have testicular cancer or breast cancer, and they need to get these treatments to preserve that fertility by banking sperm and eggs ahead of time. That is something that people need to do. And, some people start to get fuzzy and a little squeamish about, well, what are the ethical implications of that? And that's why we've got the bill out there for a right to fertility treatments.
This next one's a little in the weeds on healthcare, but I was looking at some past press releases and things, and back in January, you and others wrote to Congressman Derek Van Orden because it seemed like the Trump administration was not going to allow for you to collect the money from a newly expanded hospital assessment. Again, this was all stuff trying to pass before the big bloated boondoggle, and you wanted Congressman Van Orden to stick up for rural health care in Wisconsin. Did anything ever come of that?
I have yet to hear from Congressman Van Orden on that one.
You're kidding.
It's shocking, right?
Yeah.
This is one of those...
the man tweeted 600 times in the month of February. Surely, maybe one of those was for you, but returning your phone calls or letters or something. No.
Maybe I should just tweet at him. Maybe that's the only way I can get to my congressman.
It would be, yeah.
I try to stay off of that cesspool that is formerly known as Twitter.
Yeah,
so,
you are a wise woman that way.
Well, that's never been said to me before.
Well, when it comes to Twitter, that's a low bar right there for wisdom. We did say that maybe something else could happen, either come out of the Senate, or there's been this discussion of, a combo package of tax relief and then additional state aid for schools with the surplus. But I'm certainly getting mixed signals at best as to whether something will be done or if it's better to just wait until January after the election and the next budget cycle and everything. Do you have any feeling one way or another as to whether Governor Evers and legislative Republicans are even working to hammer out something, or is it something that's shouldn't be on our radar at this point?
I think they both have pretty firm lines in the sand as far as it needs to be this and it can't include that. And I don't know if those two are going to come together. And I know a lot of us who are hoping to be back next year are really cautious right now when it comes to what to do financially, because, gas just jumped a whole bunch per gallon over the weekend and is probably going to continue to go up. And I think when we've got Trump in office, we never know what is going to be on the fiscal horizon. And I would hate for us to have the opportunity to build a really progressive budget, but be in a deficit because of something that has happened internationally or nationally that is out of the control of those of us in Wisconsin. So I'm hesitant to completely spend down that surplus right now. Just looking at, we don't know what the heck is going to happen in DC right now. So
that's more than fair. So when it comes to school funding, there is a question of the week that we put in our Sunday newsletter, and I'd like your thoughts on it. It's about the level of state aid versus local property taxes to fund K-12 education in this state. There's been all this talk about there should be 2/3, state funding. And so we put up a multiple choice all about, yep, 2/3, but unlimited, or 2/3, but with some kind of caps in place. Maybe some people think it should be like way more than 2/3 state funding. And other people may go the other way and say, you know what, it should all be a local matter, and local property taxpayers should decide, the level of funding for their particular school district. There's no easy answer here. It's something we've been talking about for years and years. What's your view on the mix of state aid that should be going to fund K-12 education in our state?
Yeah, I think first and foremost, I think local governments have been forced to rely too much on property taxes, and we've got a pretty big property tax burden in this state. I would like to see a different mix of that coming up. I don't know. I can't tell you, here's my magic number. I haven't run the spreadsheets and things like that. When it comes to education, K-12 in particular, I think a big thing that we need to look at is the whole voucher system. That is something that wasn't as prevalent 20 years ago as it is right now. And, we're lifting the caps on that. People want to go to private school. That's great. Good for you. That's your choice. But for us to fund out of our tax dollars two separate systems is completely unsustainable. And if we want to get more funding into our public schools, I think sunsetting or scaling back on the voucher schools would be a really, really good place to start.
State Representative Jodi Emerson is with us. One more area I want to get into, only because there was a guy that I interviewed yesterday at this time period. Coincidentally, same last name. And this guy, Julian Emerson, was talking about affordable housing and the plans that he's working on with folks in the city of Altoona. So we got a good local perspective on things from your husband. And now I get to talk to the wife instead, who's working from a state standpoint. Affordable housing is one of the small number of areas where I think people talk a good game about bipartisanship, but I don't know ultimately if you feel like, progress was made this year on helping people all across Wisconsin, or helping communities all across Wisconsin address the very real issue of affordable housing. What's your take on it from a legislative standpoint?
Yeah, when we're talking housing, this isn't something that can just pop up overnight. And so last session, we got some really good bills passed. We put $525 million into some programs at WIDA. This year, we have been working on kind of fixing those. As you know, being a former member of the Senate always gets their really loud say in things. And to pass a couple of those bills, they had to throw some bones to a couple of folks in the Senate, one who is no longer there anymore. So we've been kind of rolling back the Dewey provisions in those bills to make sure that we can stack some of these programs with TID funding, with local funding, other things like that. And then when you set up these new systems, then WIDA has to set up the rules and all the parameters around them. And it takes a little bit of time. And then to submit all of the paperwork in to get some of these funds, it's not as fast as when it's like, well, we're going to do a tax credit of $500 to every person in the state. They just need to fill it out on their tax forms. That kind of stuff shows up faster. And then you actually have to build the houses too. So this is one of those slower things. And my husband really well. He has the patience of a saint in some ways because he's been married to me for over 30 years.
Just for the record, you said that. I didn't say that. You said that. So
okay. We're both saintly in that realm. So.
All right, fair point.
But he has spent his career in journalism for the most part. You do an interview, you write a story. You do an interview, you write a story. And it was a couple months ago, he said to me, he's like, man, this public policy stuff takes a really long time. And I was like, tell me about it. I've been doing it for 8 years and there's still some stuff we haven't gotten to. So
let's see here. There's a request here for equal time from a Mr. Emerson. We'll get back to this.
Put
The
him on
thing is,
hold.
yeah, the thing is with this guy, I mean, because he was such a dogged reporter for all those years. Yesterday when we were talking about, he talked about how he talked to 28 different stakeholders about how to design a particular plan. So the guy's still as thorough as ever, checking out all the sources and things.
He
So
is, and they've it's we've gotten to that point in our lives now where when we're on a road trip, we're talking housing policy instead of like, hey, what did you do this week in work, or what are the grandkids up to, or where should we go on vacation? No, we discuss housing policy on our road trips.
that's
So
the glamour. That's the glamorous
but
part of the job, right?
we're dorks and we love
Yep.
it. But we've got some ideas at the state that we haven't been able to implement, whether it's because of the party structure that we have right now and boss being in charge, or just because it takes longer to do at a state level than it does at a local level.
Right.
But it's kind of fun because they've implemented this revolving loan program for home repairs in Altoona at the same time that we were also working on a bill in the state level to do this as well. Of course, theirs got passed and is being implemented way before ours is, but we do work hand in hand with that stuff. And I'll come home from Madison and he'll be like, so where's that weeded trailer bill? What happened with it? Did you guys pass that this week?
Nerds.
Hi, honey. Good to see you too.
Yep. I will say, and I don't want to put the cart before the horse here, but obviously there are a lot of hopes for a Democratic trifecta next year, which could impact a lot of different areas. For example, I know that some Democrats put forward a package of bills that are geared toward tenant rights rather than landlord rights. I mean, the knock on the Republican-led legislature for several years now has been it is rather top heavy with landlords, and there's definitely a bias in law that needs to be addressed for tenants and homeowners and things like that.
Absolutely. Like with any other large group of people, you've got good tenants and good landlords and bad landlords, and we want to make sure that everybody is protected in that situation. Everybody deserves a safe, affordable, accessible place to live. Full stop. And we know that there are some landlords out there that take advantage of people. We also know that there are some tenants out there who are really, really crappy tenants and will completely abuse a place to the fact that, it almost needs to be stripped down to the studs and rebuilt. And so there needs to be protections for landlords and their investment and their businesses. And there needs to be protections for tenants and their lives and their health and safety as well. So I think in a world where we can come together, I think that there is a place where we can do both of those.
State Representative Jodi Emerson, did we miss any topics that you're working on? Anything else you want to address before we wrap things up here?
Oh, there is so much stuff going on.
Such a to-do list.
There's such a to-do. It's not even a to-do list. It's a to-do spreadsheet. But, I think one of the things that I'm so excited about for this next session coming up and the hopes of a blue trifecta is that the legislation that I have gotten from ideas talking to my constituents might finally get a hearing, might finally get approved on the Assembly floor, on the Senate floor, to the governor's desk. And, I don't think that we should ever be in a situation where we've got a partisan gerrymander for the Democrats. I mean, maybe 2 years wouldn't be a bad idea just to roll some of it back. I got to say that for sure. But we're a purple state, and it should swing back and forth, especially in the Assembly, where we're all elected every 2 years. But to get us a little closer to the state that we reflect, I think is a goal for everybody. And we're going to spend some time trying to figure out how we can set up some nonpartisan redistricting ideas going into the next census so that when those new maps come, they're going to be fair and have a way to do it.
It would be nice to have a cleaner, more honest system to hand off to, the eventual next generation that takes us over. Make that our legacy rather than the legacy of the past 15, 16 years.
Yeah.
So.
And if we can put it into law, it takes an awful lot of guts, should we say, for somebody to take that out of law as well. So that's some of the things that I'm looking forward to doing in the next session.
Jodi Emerson, thank you so much.
Thanks,
You
Pat.
got a
Good to
busy
see
day.
you.
We'll talk to you later. Take care. All right, there's Jodi Emerson giving us a little legislative update from Madison on a session that is in its final phases. And then pretty soon it'll be time to campaign. But first, there's some extra business. Governor Evers this morning, as promised in his State of the State address, did this morning sign an executive order calling the legislature into special session at noon on Tuesday, April 14th. To work on a constitutional amendment banning partisan gerrymandering in Wisconsin once and for all. As Jodi was discussing right there, that this has been a political football, dating back to 2011, when Republicans first rigged the maps and had an artificial majority, a near supermajority for years and years. And so now Governor Evers wants to work on a constitutional amendment, let the people vote on having a, perhaps an independent, nonpartisan redistricting commission or something else that takes the map making out of politicians' hands, because too many of them have proven that they can't be trusted. Now, will this be another one of those sessions that Republicans just gavel in and gavel out? Well, that's a heck of a case to take to voters, that you don't even want to discuss nonpartisan map making for the legislative districts. So Governor Evers will find out come Tuesday, April 14th, whether that is going to happen or not. So that just in from the governor's office. I forgot yesterday to address and say hello to Jim in Appleton, who sent a note about civic media and some more shows that have been cut or dropped from the schedule. And to thank everybody again who's come over here to check things out. Now, again, we're not doing a radio show yet. We're not even doing a podcast yet, but just keeping up these updates so that you can see, in real time on the same day, some of the things that we're working on at Up North News. And, it may become a full-blown podcast at some point, but to have some of you checking in either live at 9 a.m. or later on throughout the day is very satisfying. And I just want to thank you again for doing that. I do wish that, like the radio show, we could play music clips, but Facebook and YouTube do not look kindly upon that if you're not a radio station that has a music license. So once again, you either have to use your imagination or you have to click on the links that I put in the comment sections. Like today, there is Jennifer Warnes and Bill Medley with their song I Had the Time of My Life from the Dirty Dancing soundtrack. That's because Jennifer Warnes is 79 years old today, born in Seattle. She won 2 Grammy Awards, both for duets, in 1983 with Joe Cocker, Up Where We Belong from An Officer and a Gentleman, and 1987 there from Dirty Dancing with Bill Medley. And then she had a big solo hit in 1976, Right Time of the Night. So happy birthday to Jennifer Warnes. Happy birthday to Tone Loc, 60 years old. I guess officially a one-hit wonder with Wild Thing. He was born Tony Smith in Los Angeles. Tone Loc is where he went with it instead. And Camila Cabello is 29 years old today. She was born 29 years ago today in Havana, Cuba, in case you forgot what song that she does. On this day in 1973, Elton John began a 2-week run at the top of the album chart with Don't Shoot Me, I'm Only the Piano Player. And the 2 big hits off that album were Daniel and Crocodile Rock. The Star-Spangled Banner was adopted as our national anthem on this day in 1931. It should have been changed about 60 years later after Whitney Houston sang it. They should have just retired it at that point and said, let's come up with a new song. Nobody's going to do it any better. And on this day in 2017, the Nintendo Switch was released, a video game console or tablet, a portable. I'm trying to learn about the Switch. There's now the Nintendo Switch 2. I wish you could have seen the text messages I had back and forth with my daughters who have grandkids of varying ages, because the one is plays Minecraft all the time. I mean, to the point where even my daughter, his mom, has now learned Minecraft. Well, I want to learn Minecraft, but he does it on an Xbox. The other daughter's kid is 6, has a Nintendo Switch 2, and loves that. So as a grandparent, I'm sitting here going, well, do we want to get a Switch too and learn it and maybe learn Minecraft and all that? Or do we have to get an Xbox first? I went through all this when I was a brand new grandparent, 19 years ago now, with getting the Nintendo Wii. And that was a great purchase for new grandparents. We played all kinds of games with the grandkids, the first wave of grandkids, I guess I should say. The Wii is long gone now, and we've got to figure out, do we get a Switch too? Do we get an Xbox? Do we do something else entirely? It's really fun to watch grandparents try to learn video games and figure out if they should be buying something or just learning the game, or what. Jim in Appleton gets in the comment sections today. Good morning. I just don't want you to feel alone. You are incredibly relevant and your news is deliciously digestible. Thank you very much for that. And of course to Chris for wishing us another beautiful morning here. All right, the usual daily business. We've talked about our question of the week with Jodi, and that is about, the how you would divvy up state aid versus property taxes to fund our schools. Again, you can find the question of the week on our website now at upnorthnewswi.com. And you can see it first in the newsletter, but you can go answer it on the website. There's a new, whatever they call it, app that we've got in it, or widget or something, where you can click A, B, C, or D. I give you all these different options, and then it automatically tabulates it and makes it easier to put it into next Sunday's newsletter. So be sure you go looking for that. And of course, also new on the website is our Do Something calendar of events. Today, for example, the League of Women Voters of the Greater Chippewa Valley will have something called Public School Funding, Facts and Challenges for the Chippewa Valley, starting at 6 o'clock this evening. And Indivisible this evening up in Rhinelander will have a candidate forum featuring the 3 Democrats running for Congress in the 7th District, Fred Clark, Ginger Murray, and Chris Armstrong. And then finally, tomorrow, the city of Middleton will have a candidate forum, a forum to meet and hear candidates for Middleton Mayor and Middleton City Council, and so many more events, so many rallies, protests, seminars, you name it. So head on over there and learn much more. Look at our Do Something calendar of events. All right, time to go do the day job over at Up North News. Dr. Kristen Lyerly will be here tomorrow, and then we won't have shows for nearly a week. I'll have Kristen Lyerly tomorrow, Wednesday, and then we'll be back the very next Wednesday with Lieutenant Governor Sarah Rodriguez joining us live. So be around for that next week, Wednesday, as we continue hearing from the candidates in the race for Wisconsin governor. I'm Pat Kreitlow. Thanks for joining us. We'll see you tomorrow for what's sure to be another beautiful morning up north.